Hi, thanks for joining us for this episode of Doug Has Questions. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe. We're available if you want to watch us on YouTube, or if you just want to listen to the podcast version on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And each episode goes live on Thursday morning. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and we're happy to have you listening. Hey, welcome to this episode of Doug Has Questions. Today I'm in Barnveld, Wisconsin at Vortex Optics headquarters with Joe Hamilton, CEO and president of Vortex. Thank you not only for joining the podcast, Joe, but also letting us use your amazing studio here. This is something for me to aspire to.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. We love having you as a guest.
Yeah, no, it's great being here. It's always, as a longtime seller of Vortex products, learning the story of the company over the years has been a privilege, and feeling that love that you guys have for your customers and your dealers. So I kind of want to get into that with you, but also what I do with all of these, I want to start a little bit earlier.
Yeah, let's do it.
When you were younger.
Yeah.
1986.
Yeah.
Mom and dad moved to Wisconsin.
Right.
Dad was a dentist.
Yeah. So yeah, my dad was a dentist. So real quick, my dad was in Vietnam. He did 3 tours and he got out. He had the GI Bill. And so kind of how he told me one time is he sort of threw a dart at a dartboard of respectable careers, and it landed on dentistry. So he goes to become a dentist, and then he ends up being a dentist for about 10 years, but he discovers that he hates being a dentist.
I can understand
Right,
that.
right. I know, looking in people's mouths all day, and nobody wants to go to see the dentist.
No.
And he did a really concerted effort, because I remember me and the brothers, we'd visit him at his dental office, of like trying to make it a fun, pleasurable experience. But again, nobody wants to see the dentist. So he and my mom, just like hobby wise, especially my mom, they'd take us for hikes. And she got into backyard bird feeding, which got them going into a Wild Birds Unlimited store in Indiana. And through that, my dad didn't know it at the time, but, turned out to be the kind of consummate entrepreneur. He was looking around saying, I think I could do this. I think I could have a store like this and be way less stressful, which, of course, later he'd find out retail is not necessarily less stressful, but it'd be way less stressful. And, and Margie, that's my mom, she's into this. And so long story short is they made connections with the franchise that only had about 7-8 stores at the time. They told him Wisconsin was the best destination. So they actually said you can either go to Milwaukee, Green Bay, or Madison. So he went to Milwaukee. He's like, too big. He went to Green Bay, too small. And on the way back to Indiana, he went to Madison. He was like, just right. So they always joke that they took us on a covered wagon in 86 with my 2 other brothers, older brothers, and then Jimmy would come later. And yeah, we moved to Madison, and my dad started the Wild Birds Unlimited store.
How old were you?
I was 6 years old. And actually, so this is pretty cool. So my dad was 38 at the time. See, my math is right. 38 at the time, and he had 3 boys under the age of 7. And so he could have hit the kind of easy button and just stayed a dentist. I mean, it was a very good practice. He was like pretty much the only dentist in town in Kendallville, Indiana. But yeah, he decided to take the leap of starting the Wild Birds Limited, a whole new career with, a stay-at-home wife and 3 boys.
That, I don't think a lot of people realize the chance that he was taking on that.
Yeah.
That is big, to have that much faith in himself.
Yeah.
That he's going to go make this work when you've got a family to support. It's one thing doing it by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But wife, 3 kids.
Right.
Totally new career, something he hasn't done before.
Right.
In a new community.
Right.
Doesn't have the customer base. If you did it in Indiana, you got friends that are going to stop by, people you built up a relationship.
Great point. Yep.
But coming into a new environment, totally blank slate, started a new
Yeah.
Could you, at that age, even at 6, could you kind of sense any nervousness or tension that?
So I'll tell you a little bit about why he did it based off what he told me, and then I will tell you kind of what it felt like to be 6 years old and when that went down. So I asked him, I've asked him multiple times, and of course the answer is the same, but I remember the first time I asked him about like, hey, what gave you the confidence or allowed you to go from like idea, where this is just an idea in my head, which I think a lot of people have ideas in their head of like becoming an entrepreneur or starting a business, to actually making that leap, and then especially being married with 3 young boys, and and so since he was in Vietnam, when he got out, he would read a lot about Vietnam, and one of the things that he had read about multiple times was about the Vietnam boat people, is what they called them. And so people were fleeing the North Vietnamese, and they would get in boats and they would just go east, and a lot of them would make it to America or Hawaii or wherever. But for those that got to America, they didn't speak the language, they didn't have any money. To your point about not knowing anybody, your neighbors, they didn't know anybody, and they would somehow, some way, in some cases, they would start a business and make it. It may not be a Fortune 500 company, but they made it, and their family made it. And so he actually kind of drew some confidence from that and thought, well, geez, if these people can make it and they're in the hole, they don't have any money, they don't know how to speak the language, they don't know anybody, and if they can make it, here I am. I'm a college graduate. I know the language. I have all of these things working in my favor. If they can make it, I can too. And so, but I will say, when he started the Wild Birds Unlimited, I mean, he's told me this. He said, "Hey, Joe, I was never the smartest guy. I was never the best at this, the best at this." But he said, "There's one thing I could hang my hat on, is I could work. I could work really, really hard." And that's the thing that I saw and felt, was he worked incredibly hard. I mean, a lot of times he would sleep at the office. He hand built all the displays because he couldn't afford displays for the Wild Birds Unlimited store. I mean, he was working, all day, every day, because I think he knew, hey, I made this big decision. I got these 3 boys. I have this wife. I need to make sure I can provide. And I think that's also was a catalyst. He's a creative guy anyways, but I think that was a catalyst for his creativity, was really out of necessity. But you could feel it. He was always a hard worker.
And listening to that, there's so many parallels between our fathers.
Yeah.
My dad grew up, he in the Midwest. His mom died when he was 2.5 years old. Dad kind of turned to alcohol, left him and his brothers pretty much alone. And so at age 8, he got taken in by another family, or a pair of brothers and their housekeeper, and raised him. And so I look back at it, like I told you before, he just passed away a little over a month ago. And looking back at, he did the same thing. He was a school teacher, left being a school teacher to start a sporting goods store. There's already 1 or 2 sporting goods stores in town. Everybody's like, "What are you, crazy?
Right.
Why are you doing this?" But I think those struggles early in life, same with your dad seeing the Vietnamese boat people, but I think also probably his experience in 3 tours in Vietnam, he survived that, came back, gives him a sense of self-confidence and a lack of fear.
Yeah.
I lived through that. My dad lived through years of, him and his brothers would be left at home. If they shot birds in the yard, that was their dinner.
Yeah.
And when he moved in with Matt and George, they would give him ammo, but he needed to bring a certain number of pheasants home, or rabbits.
Wow.
Per shell.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a formal adoption. It wasn't formal foster care. It was just a family that took him in.
Right.
So I look back at the uncertainty that must have been there with him at that stage in his life.
Yep.
And that you have to produce, you have to work hard.
Yeah.
And he worked his butt off the rest of his life. He was always working.
Yeah.
After, in the evenings after dinner, we'd go down and we'd price lures that came in or whatever. We're down at the store working. Weekends, we're at the store working. And that work ethic.
Right.
And like you said, you don't have to be the smartest.
Right.
But showing up and putting in the work.
Right.
That's something that everybody can do.
Right.
You just keep grinding and grinding and grinding.
It's funny to use the word grinding, because he always said, I was a grinder, in the sense that and he could. And, when we tell the history and everything, and probably similar to you with your business or somebody else that's known about your business, is they focus a lot on these really big highs, these big moments, which is awesome. But it's really the stuff in between the big moments. It's just like, it's almost like the movie Groundhog Day. It's like you're really good at Groundhog Day and grinding out every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year. And then that leads to these big, kind of cool moments, but it really is the in between, I think, that, somebody who's got that grinding mentality really produces something great.
Yep. And when you were talking about your dad building the displays,
Yeah.
my dad built most of his own displays at the
Yeah.
store. And so many years later, we're remodeling, and he's got all the metal tracking on the wall for the
Yeah.
shelving.
Yep.
He had hand screwed, they're like 3 inches long, like a number 12, big, heavy with a flathead. And he'd hand screwed all these, and I'm taking them out with a screw gun. And he's like, "That's not fair. You're cheating."
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
says, "You don't imagine the blisters I had." And I was like, and I just started counting the number of screws, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine
Yeah.
sitting there and putting all of those in by hand.
Yeah. It's a weird way to get inspired, but it is inspiring, actually.
It is.
To think that I'm going to get inspired by looking at a bunch of screws, but of course, it's not about the screws.
No.
It's about that work ethic and just, kind of that, just commitment to finding a way to getting it done, and, that you can draw upon inspiration. But yeah, so, I don't know if you saved some of those screws, but maybe
I should have.
I know. Well, there's a lot
have.
that I wish I had saved for those reasons, but
I do have a bunch of things that he put together that I have
Good.
saved, but yeah, I should have saved some of the screws.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yep.
So you grew up in the store then?
I did. I grew up in the store. So it would be jugging seed, like almost milk cartons of seed,
Mhm.
and then 25-pound bags, 50-pound bags. So you'd sell them, and you had the handwritten receipts, and you'd write a receipt and you'd hand it, and then you'd go grab because my dad was like, "Hey, the customer does not carry their seed out. You carry it out, to their car." That's part of the service. And so, you'd have me and my two brothers, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, we'd be like carrying seed out for customers. And, then you'd have to be, dust things or selling a heated bird bath or, all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, it was just a great, you didn't realize it at the time, but it ended up being just a great training ground for dealing with customers, understanding retail. I think one of the things that really helped us in those days was I was working in the store, but I got to see what an owner's life was like who owned a retail store.
Mm-hmm.
And so then later when we got into Vortex, I was able to empathize and understand much better what that guy, a lot of them are guys, but whoever it was that owned the store, what they were going through. And so I think that it was good from a work ethic standpoint, but it ended up being, you end up kind of almost having a superpower in the sense that in our business, in the sense that you could really understand a retailer's perspective. And so I'm so thankful for that. But yeah, growing up in the family business, and I don't know if you went through this, but it was like, I am not working in the family business when I get older. I'm getting away. And that old saying comes to mind of, if you want to make God laugh, just tell him your plans. So that was just, it's very ironic that I ended up in the family business because, all I could do was just wanting to get away from it when I was, in the 80s and 90s.
100%.
Yep.
I graduated from high school. I was leaving Haynes as soon as I graduated from college.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Not looking back.
Was not coming back, was not going to run the store. Part of it is I saw how much work it was. I was like, there's got to be an easier way to make a living than this. And part of it
is.
It's a lot easier.
You weren't wrong on that.
and part of it is my dad and I, although I developed his work ethic, there's still, that father-son dynamic
Kinda
that
clash.
we would clash on
About
different things about how things should be done. And,
Right.
so I didn't want to go through that.
Yeah.
And it was my senior year in high school when he broke his back. And that really changed. And I still wanted to get out.
Yeah.
Right after he broke his back. But he was building the American Ball Legal Foundation.
Okay.
Because that was kind of in the late 70s, Haynes lost both their sawmills. And so the major source of employment, school population cratered, the economy was in very bad shape. And a group of businessmen got together trying to figure out what's our path forward. And one of the ideas is that Haynes at the time had the largest concentration of bald eagles in North America. And they went to my dad's like, I'll take that on. And from then on, he was passionate about eagles. That was his thing. So he worked with Winchester to make a commemorative rifle.
Yeah.
Had 3,000, this little store in Alaska, town of 2,500 people.
Wow.
Buys 3,000 rifles from Winchester. Custom rifle for the commemorative, 200 gold, 2,800 silver.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, my dad's buying 3,000 rifles. Things are going well.
Right.
Yeah. He, was, he he leveraged all sorts of things in order to make that work. But then the proceeds from those guns is what was the seed money for starting the American Bald Eagle Foundation.
Wow.
And so he was lifting one of the walls at the foundation, and they didn't have quite enough guys. The wall came back on him. Fire blocking caught the back of his head, bent him over, and that's crushed his spine. And he was in a wheelchair the rest of his life.
Wow.
And so that was when I was telling you that story yesterday.
Yeah.
You went back to your
this
is old from the store, brought out a little eagle here. So that was that was a good connection, because I looked at it. The more I learned about your guys' story, your dad's background, starting a new career, getting into birds.
Right.
My dad gets into eagles.
Right.
And it consummated the rest of his life. It was all about eagles.
Wow.
Everything was about the American Bald Eagle Foundation. And so after college, I'd worked in Minnesota for a while. I worked in Seattle for a while.
Yep.
Nothing was really seeming like it fit.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my dad's brothers had moved up from Colorado.
Yeah.
And he was starting to have some health issues. My dad knew I wasn't happy. And he says, "Hey, you want to come back and run the store?" He says, "We either need to get somebody else to run it and help out more, or we're probably looking at selling it."
Yeah.
And he caught me at that point where I really wasn't happy where I was at.
Okay.
He was like, "Sure, I'll go back."
Yeah.
And
did you think you'd go back for good, or do you?
I thought I was going to go back for good.
Okay.
Because I had in my mind, looking at it from the outside of just the people coming in, he was always adding on, doing different things. I thought, store's killing it.
Right. Yeah. Let me join this rocket
Let
ship.
me join this rocket ship and just ride this on. I'll just coast through this. This is going to be great. Got home. That was not the case. I found out really quick that, sales were declining. It really wasn't there's a lot of old maintenance at the building that needed to be done that hadn't been done for a while.
Sure.
Because he was the one that did all of that when he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then you have to hire somebody. It's harder to get it done.
Yeah.
And so for the first few years I was back, I was just kind of spinning my wheels.
Yeah.
Really wasn't going anywhere.
Sure.
And then in August of 98, my uncle that was working there passed away. And the day before that Saturday, him and I had this conversation, just really in depth about life, what his plans were, kind of what he saw in Haynes, what I saw in Haynes, and it was the most connected I had ever felt with him.
Wow. It
was just this really, really close conversation. Next morning, I get a call from my mom that he died of a heart attack that night.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And at the time I was in conversation with an uncle in Minnesota about opening an office for his freight company in Seattle. I was about ready to bail. That happened. So I called my uncle Minnesota. I was like, "Hey, I can't do it. I got to stick that out here."
Yeah.
And the next year we hired a guy, Vietnam vet.
Okay.
From Agent Orange, he had all sorts of health issues.
Yeah.
Some of it was Agent Orange. Some of it was the self-medication he'd done over the years from his time in Vietnam. His body was failing in many different ways. He would call me in the morning and it sounded like he was going to die within an hour. He's like, "I don't know if I'm going to make it in." 3 hours later, he comes bounding through the door. "Hey, Doug, I decided to make it." And just the amount of energy. And I started looking at that and I was like, if he's in that much pain, he's got that many health issues, and he's still working that hard, what are my excuses?
Right.
How come I'm not doing more?
Right. It's like contagious.
It was.
Yeah.
It was contagious. And so at that point, I said, I'm just going to dedicate everything to making the store successful.
Yeah.
And so I got appointed to the city council. So I started getting involved in government, and I started working 7 days a week at the store.
Well, I think so. First off, shout out to the Vietnam vets and to all veterans. But I know the Vietnam veterans sometimes didn't get, especially back then, didn't get the respect and credit that they should have. But so shout out to them. But also, I think, so you said 7 days a week. And I think that's one big misconception that people don't understand is whether or not a retail store is open 7 days a week. It is a 24/7, 365. It's a dog eat dog world. Yep. I mean, it is tough. It is tough. And if you can make it in retail, you can make it in just about anything. And it takes that level of commitment. And
it's every year it's the same.
Right.
It doesn't matter, because we got into groceries in 2002, and that kind of helped stabilize income throughout the year. But there's always something breaking. There's always something that needs to be addressed.
Fires to put out.
Fires to put out. There's staffing issues. There's how come this product hasn't shipped yet? You're trying to track, and getting stuff to Alaska.
It's tough.
It's not the easiest.
It's not the easiest. Yeah.
There's a lot of things in our store that it's 4 to 6 weeks from when I order it to when I'm going to get it at the store.
So you got to be your own supply chain person.
You got to be your own supply chain person.
And then, and I remember with my dad, and I think part of this was his just personality. I mean, part of it was his personality, but I also think it's something that I've noticed with people who do well in retail is they try a lot of experiments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might even just be a little corner in the store.
Yep.
And then, but it might end up turning to be a big thing. And I know that you guys were the sporting goods, but now grocery. So I'd be very curious to understand a little bit how that came about.
So in 94, when I moved home, every year we were borrowing in the spring to pay for inventory to get us through the summer.
Sure.
Got the note paid off, going to winter. Winter's slow.
Yeah.
And 2001 was the first year that at the end of the year, it's like, okay, bills are paid off.
Yeah.
We had enough to get us through the winter. The next 2002 did not have to get a note from the bank. August of 2002, one of our 2 grocery stores announced that they were closing. And it was because it was owned by a company out of Ketchikan. The pulp mill in Ketchikan had closed. Their sales in Ketchikan dropped by millions of dollars. They couldn't support the store in Haynes anymore. Older building. And the butcher came and talked to me. He says, Doug, you need to open a meat market. Like, Clint, we have no experience in meat. What are you talking about? He goes, no.
You're perfectly suited.
He says, I don't want to retire yet. I don't want to leave Haynes.
Yeah.
I still want to work, and Haynes needs competition. We need to start a meat market. It's like, Clint, I don't have any place to put it. I got sporting goods in the store. There's no place trying to figure out where to do the plumbing and everything. There's refrigeration.
Right.
There's no way. He was after me for a week or a month, about this. And we talked to the family. I was like, there's no way. And one day I was sitting in a part of the store, and Al, guy that was working for me at the time, Al Jobbins, he used to do construction before he'd come up. I said, Al, the spot down here, cement floor, we can't do a drain, but what if we put all the sinks on this wall? Do you think we could put a pump on the other side to pump any of the sewage out and stuff like that? And he goes, probably. So I called a plumber friend of mine, told him, he crawled underneath. He goes, yep, that's doable. And so we had a family meeting that night, and it was like, okay, I think we can do this and this. And they said, all right, let's do it. And so we got in touch with the food center. We bought a bunch of their used equipment.
Right.
And so that was beginning of September, we made the decision. First part of December, we opened up.
God.
And we had, the whole room was empty.
Yeah.
We had an 8-foot freezer case. We had a meat case and a couple people behind it cutting meat. And that was it.
Yeah.
And
bootstrapping it.
Then we put a couple card tables out and put some bread and some chips out there. Bought some shelving a couple months later, started putting that, and just kind of slowly kept growing. And then if we weren't going to get any produce, we're just going to stick with meat, some dry goods. Pretty soon everybody's like, got any milk? Got any eggs? Got any lettuce? And we were just buying the cheapest equipment we could find because we didn't have any money. We didn't want to get a big loan. We had no idea where this was going to go.
Yeah, you don't know where it's going to go.
But it was a 10, 12 year just crazy ride until things kind of, we finally got to, in 2017, we redid all the equipment and got modern refrigeration equipment.
So you mean you didn't have any committees or sustainability studies or analytics done?
It was all
really. That's not how it happened.
It was all flying by the
seat of
our pants.
Interesting. How in the world could it have been successful? I've got a little bit of like. I love those stories because when I talk to entrepreneurs like you, or I think about our history, is so much of it is I had a friend. We talked, like I had a gut feeling. I wanted to try something. We didn't have a lot of money, so we bootstrapped it, and it started small, and I kind of grow with it as it grows. And of course, then companies get big, and then somebody wants to try something new, and they're like, "Oh, we've got to run all these analytics, and we've got to do all these things." And it's like, you realize that's not what built this, right?
It was that gut feeling.
Yeah, and hustle.
Gut feeling, and hustle and hard work.
And hustle and hard work.
There's a ton of failures over that time.
Right. Not all experiments work out well.
Not all of them work well. Not all of them work well. There's a ton of failures. And I look back, I was like, God dang, you're an idiot.
Yeah. What was I thinking?
What was I thinking?
Yeah.
But
But you just need a few.
You just need a few.
Right.
And then when you recognize those few and you start putting more resources into that, you're putting your lean into those.
Yeah.
That allows you to grow and just keep going beyond that. But no, it was a crazy time, and I hope to never have to relive working that much again.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
I would never, if somebody tried to transport you back, I'd be like, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah. I don't know if I can do this. If I knew ahead of time, I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. There's no way. It's not going to be worth it. But
the ignorance is bliss. Yeah.
And I think part of that, it builds so much resiliency in you.
Totally. Yeah.
That going through that change and going through all of that hard work and seeing something come out the other end, then you start thinking, and this could be the detriment. So now I kind of have to put brakes on. I was like, well, and I saw that with my dad, because I don't think he ever thought he could fail.
Yeah.
The number of things that I look back on, and mom and dad would tell me the financial aspects of it.
Right.
You guys are out of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things he did was there were several people that were out of work from the sawmill. So he would buy a boat, commercial fishing boat. He'd mortgage a house or the store or whatever,
right.
Buy the boat. They would buy the permit just so they'd have another occupation so they could stay in town. There's like 5 or 6 people that he did that with.
Wow.
That he's buying these boats to help these people out commercial fishing.
Wow.
And I think part of that was going back because he had a family take him in.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was kind of a pay it forward thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think part of it too is that, and he had these grandiose plans that all these guys were going to fish together. They're going to start marketing to the Midwest. And
right.
His mind went like 1,000 miles an hour beyond that.
He's an entrepreneur.
He was an entrepreneur,
got a vision.
Yep. Not everybody shared the vision. So not all of it worked, but
sure.
A lot of those, the last one passed away a year ago that had a boat that he had helped sponsor on that. And he'd had that boat for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fished every year.
That's super cool. That's cool that he paid it forward, and who knows how that impacted those guys in their lives with other people, and it just kind of ripples out.
Yep.
And that's really cool. But I love those stories of leaning into experiments. And you're right. We did a lot in our company, and if you knew how hard it was going to be, you wouldn't probably go through it again. But I'll tell you one thing: the appreciation too of where you end up, what got you there. And we were talking a little bit before the podcast here that it's not anybody's fault if they weren't there in those humble beginnings. But when somebody comes on board your company later, you try to think about, like, how do I help them understand? And of course, the real answer is you can't. But you do want to try to find ways for them to appreciate, like, the phone wasn't always ringing. Customers weren't just streaming through the door like it took a monumental amount of work, and it's something that you have to fight with a little bit, because you can't fault somebody for not being there. But it's actually an advantage if you were there.
Yep.
Yeah, because of the resiliency that it built, and because you're actually okay when you start something new, that you don't have this 5-10 year business plan of how it's all going to shake out, because you kind of know, well, everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face. The phrase, So yeah, I think, but those are beautiful stories, and just true testament to obviously your father.
But that leads me to the question for you.
Yeah,
you got this birding business.
Yeah,
what led to getting into optics?
Yeah, sure. So
running a retail store and manufacturing optics that's a huge change.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought it up. So this is obviously different, but similar in the sense. So my dad started this Wild Birds Unlimited store, just bending over backwards to make it successful. And so he got a lot of customers coming in and buying bird feeders and bird seed and other kind of knickknacks and so forth. But they were coming in there and they would say, Dan, you're helping me out. I'm getting birds to my backyard, but when I'm looking in my backyard, I'm going on hikes. Like, I want to see these birds better. So, like, where do I get binoculars? And so back then, as you know, there's no internet. So he's sending them to the camera stores, because that's typically where you get your binoculars back then. And then there was another store, American TV, and they're still around, but you can get your TVs and you can get couches and you can get some binoculars. So he's sending them there. But, after a while, he's kind of like, wait a minute. This is kind of a bright spot. I have all these people asking for something. And as we talked about as a retailer, I mean, it's a dog eat dog world. You're just trying to make payroll. You're just trying to keep the lights on. So he's like, I wonder if I could sell binoculars. So he calls up all the brands back then. They laugh him off the phone. They're like, I've never heard of Wild Birds Unlimited. I mean, what are you guys selling, parakeets and toucans? So he's like, but, my dad kind of, as you need to be as a retailer, kind of a stiff upper lip, a little, piss and vinegar. So he's like, okay, all right, fair enough. So he goes to American TV. He buys like 12 binoculars, brings them back to his store, clears out a case, puts them in there, marks him $1 over what he paid for. And as you know, at that point, he's not trying to make a lot of money. He's just trying to see, can I sell this in my store? Well, sure enough, several weeks go by, he sells all of them. Okay. So now he calls back those companies armed with those receipts and those sales. He tells them what he did. And of course, they're kind of on the phone. They're like, well, Dan, like respect, but also, technically you just violated every dealer agreement you have. But they're like, but it's impressive what you did. I'll send my rep out. So he sends the rep out and he ends up opening up an account. But what he realizes pretty quickly is if I'm not doing volume, I can't get a good enough price to make a decent margin. Mm-hmm. So back then the margins were slim anyways. And certainly if you were just a small retail store, your margins were even slimmer. He could see the reps thumbing through different price lists and he wasn't getting the best one. So he has this idea, but he kind of likes optics. He's got a lot of momentum there. And so he thinks, what if I started a mail order company? I started a mail order company. I'll go to all these birding festivals, which are a thing. They're all around the country. And I could be known as the birding place in the country. And then my volumes would go up and then, I'd get better price. And of course, you got to sell a lot of suet cakes at like 99 cents compared to like a $300 binocular, right? Margins on suet cakes are great, but the dollars aren't necessarily great, right? Mm-hmm. As we pay our rent or whatever in dollars. So he, sure enough, he creates this mail order company, Eagle Optics, which would eventually become an e-tailer, all right? And that is going really successful. It was inside the Wild Birds Unlimited store. Eventually, it got so big, it was bigger than the Wild Birds Unlimited from a revenue standpoint, employee standpoint. So eventually moved that out, which would have been Vortex's old location. But then some other the Wild Birds Unlimited franchise is growing. Dan's kind of known, that's my dad, is known as the optics guy. So he gets other franchisees from the Wild Birds Unlimited calling him saying, hey, can I get the binoculars from you? I can't open up an account with the main, but maybe I can get them through you. So he's just selling them for his cost to these stores. And they're coming back to him saying like, Dan, I can't make any money because they're used to keystoning stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's what my cost is, right?
You're not keystoning optics.
But similar to those customers coming in and asking for optics, he's like, well, now I got retailers asking for optics. So he said, I need to create my own line. I can sell it along with all those other brands, but I can wholesale that line back because my margins will be better. So he makes a lot of inroads, and he ends up, it started as a co-brand with like Eagle Optics and Celestron, or Eagle Optics and somebody. Mm-hmm. But then eventually he creates his own Eagle Optics line. And sure enough, he does. He sells it in his retail store amongst all the other brands. He didn't talk negatively about the other brands. I mean, if somebody wanted a Nikon, a Swarovski, a Bushnell, he'd sell them that. But he also had his own Eagle Optics line, but then he could wholesale that Eagle Optics line back. And that's where he starts to realize, oh, wow, I'm taking all of the negatives that I have to experience with these other brands, really poor customer service, terrible warranties. They take 3 months to warranty. They'll charge you $300 even though the binocular costs $250. And I've got really good margins, and I don't go through distribution. I only go dealer direct. So he does it for the Wild Birds Unlimited franchise and realizes like, oh my gosh, that's what I really want to be doing, is I want to be having. But he realizes at that point, he thinks, and I think this was really wise of him at the time, he's like, Eagle Optics can only be a big house brand. He's like, I can get it big, but it'll always be known for just birding, and it'll be known as a house brand. I really need to have a brand that just stands on its own, and it can be sold to birders, hunters, everywhere in between, right? And so in 2002, that's where he actually created 6 different brands. One of them was Vortex. That's when I got out of college. I thought I was going to go to law school. I got cold feet at the last minute. And then he was like, well, Joe, I'm getting ready to start this whole new thing. Why don't you come on board until you figure out what you really want to do? So when I came back, I was like, this is only going to be for a couple of years until I figure out what I really want. But I instantly caught the entrepreneurial bug. That part of the business was in full on entrepreneur mode because we just started all these different brands. And I thought all of them were going to hit. I mean, I thought every one of these brands
was a home run.
Was a home run. Yeah. We were like going to crush it. But what we did do for the next 3 years is we really kind of found out what we were passionate about inside the building. And a lot of that turned out to be hunting and shooting. We got more and more people in the business that were actually hunters and shooters. Myself and Seamus on the sales front, we were selling a lot, and a lot of it we were gravitating towards those hunting and shooting retailers. They loved us, and the economics were good. They ordered more than anybody, but what they would say to us, because we had National Audubon Society's line of binoculars, we had Masterpiece Opera Glass collection, so I sold opera glasses. We had Sportoculars, so Bucky Badger binoculars are just over there, and we had. We obviously had Vortex, which looked like it belonged in REI. We had Radiant tripods. I mean, it was like, you want an optic, we had it. So I think sometimes the shotgun approach gets a bad rap, but for us, what it did is we instantly found out what the market wanted. Mm-hmm. It was very obvious. So we quickly learned we don't like licensing because the licensor can tell you what to do. The costs are high. Our retailers were like, I don't care about the license. I like working with you guys. So just name it whatever you want to name it. And then we found out, again, hunting and shooting was where our passion internally was. The economics, the dollars were there too. And then it was like, well, which brand do we own? And we like the name of it. Well, it was Vortex. And then at that point was like, okay, let's cherry pick all of our best products across all these like 6, 7 brands, rebrand it under the Vortex name and have it be this kind of hunting, shooting vibe, because that's what we're most passionate about. And then in 2005 is when really this Vortex look and feel came on. But the warranty, the service, the margins to dealers, just everything that we was already in. We already had that baked in. And one thing I think you'll really probably appreciate this and like this, since we were a retailer before becoming a brand, I think a lot of people would have thought that would have been a hindrance to us being successful. Like, you've never been a brand before. But I got to tell you, it turned out to be a superpower. We understood what retailers were going through and what they have to deal with. And so when we worked with them in a way that it couldn't just be the end consumer's success. The retailer also had to be successful, and they were our partner in being successful. And so it was really all of their success. So if our retailer said, hey, I got this situation with a customer, it was like, cool, how do we help? Like, let's make it happen. Let's make you an all-star with your customer. And so I think just that mentality, grinding it out over a long period of time, that's how we get here. And then along the way, we became a lot of independent retailers' top binocular and spotting scope brand. And then they'd tell us, hey, that's awesome, but my biggest category is rifle scopes, which is why we got into rifle scopes. Same thing happened with rangefinders. So again, I'd love to be able to sit here and tell you we had this 30-year vision and 30-year plan, and it happened exactly. But as you know, that's not what happened. What we leaned into was these little bits of people our customer base or retailer base, they would kind of present something to us and say, this is something maybe you really ought to think about, kind of like the butcher.
Yep.
And then we'd sort of lean into it. And whenever we went into something, if it didn't work, it would sting, but it wouldn't have taken the business down. So that's like a way that we knew we had to be in the game to really find out. So it's like, okay, we're going to get into rifle scopes. We've never done rifle scopes before. So when we went into it like we spent some money, we spent some time, we spent some energy. If it had blown up in our face, it would have stung, but the business still would have gone on. Now, obviously how it turned out to be great. Rifle scopes are now our biggest category. But so it was very similar to your butcher shop story. That's kind of how we, over 38 years, that's how we get here.
So when you started off with the binoculars,
yeah,
first out of the gate with Vortex,
yep.
How many options were there?
Of just of brands.
In 2005, no, with Vortex, when you decided to
How many options?
get everything into Vortex.
Yeah.
What was your?
We probably had, so we had been in binoculars for a while because of the Eagle Optics. So I think we might have had 3 or 4 series of binoculars.
Okay.
And then in rifle scopes, when we did that, it was 2 series.
2 series.
And spotting scopes, it was just 1. Yeah.
And so, and when you're placing these orders, and your dad, because you guys have had the customer service, the warranty 100% from the very start.
Yep.
Was there a worry about how much that was going to cost the business did you bake that into the margins at the beginning and were your estimates kind of correct on how much of that stuff you were going to get back?
I think so. What my dad did a lot with the retail store is he would put, I don't know, I should ask him this. I don't know if he ever consciously thought this, but observationally and historically, what he would do is he would make a decision that forced him into a really difficult situation where he had to come through. So for instance, and you might have done this, but like, let's say in the 90s, or early 2000s, Swarovski would have like a spotting scope and they'd be discontinuing it to bring in the new one. Okay. Well, as retailers, what a lot of times they love is exclusivity. Okay. Yep. Right. And I don't want to be in price wars with everybody else. So they'd say, well, I've got 1,200 of these spotting scopes. And he's like, well, what would be really sweet if I'm the only one selling those spotting scopes?
Yeah.
But the kicker is, are you willing to buy 1,200? Well, my dad would buy 1,200.
Okay.
And that's where he puts himself in this kind of impossible position.
Yeah.
But now he is, it's pedal to the metal. We got to sell these spotting scopes, right? So we kind of did a little bit of that on the Vortex side. He didn't buy enough, just like that Swarovski example. That would have stung if we didn't sell those, right? Yep. But the business wouldn't have gone under. We leaned into product in the early days of Vortex like that. So, I mean, you got your Diamondbacks and your Vipers, and it's like, okay, we're going to lean into, we think it's going to work this way as far as the SKUs and the numbers. So we're going to lean into, 400 of these, 400 of these, 800 of these, 1,000 of these, and 800 of these, right? But we don't know how it's going to break down. We think we know because we've got some historical, but maybe more of that's on the birding side. And it was like, hey, you got to get after that. And I think what he did, and it was really smart, and some people may not like this, but I think it was really smart. And so we try to, it's kind of like the let the rope out analogy, is he kept a lot of the stress just for him.
Okay.
So the financial stress just for him. He really felt like his employees would perform their best if they didn't feel the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Yeah.
So the weight of the world was on his shoulders. So it took a couple years before he would even transfer some of that weight onto his own son's shoulders and like say, okay, here's what's going on a little bit. Because he was always afraid that people would freak out and be like, oh my gosh. And then their performance would be, wouldn't be as good when they interact with customers. And so I actually think that was really smart. Where I think sometimes people don't like it is they're like, well, I want full transparency. And it's like, I don't think you do, actually.
That's amazing that he took all that on himself and recognized that.
Yeah.
Because I think for there's some people that are like, okay, that's going to make them work harder. It's like, we got to do this.
Right.
But most people, you're right, they're going to be more hesitant.
Right.
And they're like, well, I can't screw up because Dan's going to lose everything if I make the wrong choice here.
Well,
and so giving him that freedom is huge.
And so for him, so we've never had anybody work on commission. And we've never had, so what he really wanted, he was always playing the long game. So my dad was always about the long term. We call it the infinite game. So it is what he wanted is when you were a customer that came in, he's like, just serve them how they need to be served.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if all of a sudden you're on commission or all of a sudden you have this quota you got to hit at the end of the month, you're performing, you're serving them in a completely different way now.
Yeah.
Because you have that pressure going in the background. So he didn't want people to have that. He wanted them to be freed up to just serve them where they're at, right? Just serve them how they want to be served. And then long term, it will take care of itself. And what he would say, because our family is very faith-based, what he would say, and this applies to the warranty too, which we're known for, is he said, if us being a retailer or a brand, if that's who we are and we go out of business because of it, well, we weren't meant to be in business to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's what he was saying. But he also thought, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the byproduct of serving people that way is going to be that we're successful. I don't know how successful we're going to be. We may not be number one. We might, but I think we'll be successful. But yeah, he kept the stress component very isolated to himself.
And so as you start growing forward, the warranty is a huge selling point.
Yep.
Is there ever a time you guys get frustrated that people just talk about the warranty and they don't talk about the quality of product?
So it's been years. It's been years for me. I'm going to talk about me personally.
Yeah.
And then I'll maybe try to speak somewhat on behalf of the company. So early on in Vortex, so I was newly married and I was going to the Illinois Deer and Turkey Expo in Champaign, Illinois. And we had hardly any retailers back then. So a lot of times if we didn't have any retailers at the show, we would set up and we'd sell out of the booth until we had a retailer. So I went down there with my wife and we're selling. And I have the sales background. My wife is just going to support me, but she's working, right? And she is absolutely kicking my butt sales wise. Okay. And so I'm competitive and I mean, she's cuter than I am, but I don't think that was the whole reason she was selling. Right. You know, and so I asked her, I said, Susan, why are you, like selling so much? And she said, Joe, here's the thing. You keep talking about specifications and features and benefits. And she goes like, I just keep it easy. I just talk about the VIP warranty. And then she also said, like, that's pretty much all I know either. You're like, I don't know all those specs and numbers you're talking about. And I say to her, yeah, honey, I know it. I love our warranty. I know it's a big deal, but I want people buying our stuff because it's really good. Like, it's actually not going to break. It's really well made. And I want them to buy it for those reasons. So I didn't really get it. So then a couple weeks go by and we were just kind of getting started with Sportsman's Warehouse. So we would go and visit the headquarters. And then if we could, we'd always go to the stores. And I loved going to the stores because I like to talk to people behind the counter and that sell the product and really understand. So we asked the buyer, okay, what's the store to go to? Which one, who should we talk to? And he's like I forget which store, but it's John you got to talk to. It's this older guy. He sells more Vortex than anyone, so we go to the store. And I talked to this John guy, and he's like a Grizzly Adams meets Santa Claus mashup. Old, just wise, sage guy. And I'm talking to him, and I say, John, people tell me you're the best-selling, optics guy in the whole company, and you just love and sell Vortex. And I say, what's your secret? And he looks at me, and I swear he's got like a twinkle in his eye, and he's like, I just tell him about that VIP warranty. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, and I went through the whole spiel I went through it with my wife, but I want them knowing the product is good and it's and he says like, hey, Joe, that's all great, but I just kind of keep it simple and I tell them about the VIP warranty. So long story long, I won't go super into it, but I was reading a book. It's actually it's a Switch book right over there on the counter. And there is this article chapter in there about bright spots. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea about bright spots, is that when you find a bright spot in anything, what a lot of times people do is they take it for granted. They're like, okay, that's a bright spot. That's working well. Let's put that there and let's go put out the fire over here, right? And what their argument in the book was no. Okay, if this is on fire and the building's going to go up in flames, by all means, put out that fire. Yeah. But if you have a bright spot, you got to mine that sucker for gold. Yeah. Like you double, triple, quadruple down on that bright spot. And they made a strong case that in most cases, your bright spot, you have not leaned into it enough. And for whatever reason, in that context, it clicked for me. And I thought, holy smokes, the VIP warranty is our bright spot. And then I can tell you in the cubicle I was in, I was looking around at our counter mats, at our POP stands, at the little risers that the binoculars sat on, everything. Our catalog, I was looking at it. Uh-huh. There was nothing on the VIP warranty. Nothing. And I already knew the answer, but I went back in the warehouse. I grabbed our box. I was looking all around for the VIP warranty. Nothing, which I already knew. Mm-hmm. And so I greenlit in that moment. It was like VIP warranty on everything. And so it was already our best marketing tool, but we poured gasoline on it. And we've done that ever since. So for me, from that moment on, you can't talk about the VIP warranty enough. But I do think every now and again, I think overall people know that here. I certainly preach that. But I do think every now and again, people will kind of fall victim to what I did in that moment at that Champaign, Illinois, was like, no, like I want them saying the edge-to-edge clarity is the best in the business. I want them to say the brightness is the best in the business. I want them saying all these things. And really, that's the ego getting in the way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just best to just shut up and lean into what your customer's leaning into. And if they're talking about the VIP warranty and they're all excited about it, by all means, just keep talking about that.
And so from a retailer's perspective,
Yes, please.
90% of my customers don't know any of the specifications.
Right. Yes.
They're just looking for something. They don't care about the specifications.
Right.
They want something that's going to perform. And if there's something wrong with it, they know they can get it fixed.
Right.
It's a really basic, simple. They have their price point, and okay, this one's $400. This one's $1,000. Yeah, I can't do $1,000, but $400. So what are my options in $400? And they'll look through them. And they can see the clarity. They can see, and then you look at this one here. If anything goes wrong with it, if you run over it with your truck, drop it off a building, they're going to fix it.
Yeah, and fast.
And fast.
And no fine print.
No fine print. It doesn't matter. Yeah. And it was, so the first time that I had to deal with the warranty, I think it was a Crossfire scope.
Okay.
It was Ray Stokes. He was a head coach of basketball in Wrangell. He coached when I was in high school, so I played against him, and then I'd coached against him when I was a JV coach. And he came into the store, and he's like, "What's this Vortex thing?" And I told him, I said, so he bought him, and he got back to Wrangell, and he called me. He says, "Doug, this one scope isn't working. The one works great, the other one doesn't." I said, "Here's the 800 number. Call them. They'll take care of you."
Yeah.
He called me 2 weeks later. He says, "I already got this back. They've already fixed it and got it back." I said, "Yeah, they told me it was going to be good," but I was like, "Wow, that's really good."
Yeah.
And then over time, it kept happening again and again. And there's a guy that, you've got in your customer service, Larry Whipperforth, who I knew when he was a buyer through Worldwide Distributors. He was the one that introduced me to Vortex Binoculars. He's like, "Hey, you should really give these guys, or optics, you should give them a try." And so now he's working for you in customer service.
Yep.
And a guy had called in from Haynes and said he's got an issue. Larry called me. He says, "Hey, do you have one of these in stock?" I said, "Yep." He said, "Okay, I'm going to send the guy in," because he was leaving the next day for hunt or something.
Yeah.
So the guy comes in, I flip out the scope for him. Larry sends me the shipping label, send it back. He's like, "What do I owe you?" I was like, "Well, nothing, Vortex." And he was just like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, no, it's covered."
Yep.
And then 2 years ago, when I came back here to do training with you guys, going through your showroom and throughout the building, you have all these displays of different things, like rangefinder got run over by a guy's lawnmower.
Yeah, or somebody like it's accidental discharge of a firearm, and it went through the spotting scope.
Went through the spotting scope.
Yeah.
And you guys cover that.
Right. Yeah. And we turn them into stories.
You turn them into stories.
We turn them into stories. Yeah.
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 But looking at that can't be inexpensive.
No. And so, okay. So
is that like your number one advertising campaign, is just your warranty? In a way?
Not in a way. I wouldn't call it formal. It's just, it's so much the spirit of who we are. So yes, it is. I always tell, I just talked to our marketing director the other day, is like, no one's going to outstory us. And so we want to lean into things that like make a moment and a story for an individual. And then when they tell us about their story, we want to magnify it. So, but yeah, it is. So here's what I think is the truth. And so I think, product performance wise, I think we make the best optics. Okay. But you can get another good optic from one of our competitors.
Yep.
Right. I don't think you should. I think you should choose Vortex, but they're within spitting distance of one another. And every now and again, you're going to have a product that comes out that is maybe light years better than something else in the market. But very soon, their competitors are going to get something again within that kind of spitting distance. So we really believe that what sets us apart is our people and the interactions they have with other people, or even the people that do product, our product people, in how they make a product. So for instance, it might be an electronic product. How do they make the menu so it's the easiest one to use on the market for the customer? So we want to infuse that in everything that we do. So yeah, so when it's the VIP warranty that probably gets the biggest amount of press, but it's really a VIP experience that we want to give. So whether you walk in our showroom, you call us up, you have that warranty issue, is like we have a sense of urgency to make that right for you. And we think, first of all, as we talked earlier before the podcast, you really want people to get to a point where that is, they're only doing it for the reason because that's the right thing to do. And those people matter. But it just so happens that a byproduct of that is you get customers for life. You get people that are loyal to your brand. They're your biggest marketing person in their community with their circle of people. And so yes, everything, the VIP warranty is like the tip of the spear, but everything is around is us as people, we serving other people. And a lot of people, I think, talk about service and they talk about it in a way that's subservient. And for us, service is a superpower.
Yeah. So I want to get back into that.
Oh, should we get to the cost?
I'm going to get to that. Well, if you want, I mean,
I'll just say, we track it just because you have to kind of track everything in a business.
Yeah.
But similar to my dad with the stress piece, there's only, you can count them on one hand, people that would know what our warranty costs. Because I don't want anybody to look at it from a perspective of, we need to look to save money.
We need to look to save money.
Because it costs a lot because we want the experience of it to be good. So when you talked about Larry and you talked about getting it back in less than 2 weeks up to Alaska, the warranty, like I think we have a cool warranty name. I think we have great copy behind it, but that's not your warranty. Your warranty is what it actually feels like for a customer or a dealer on the other end. And so yeah, as we've grown, we've had to grow our binocular repair team and our rifle scope repair team and our customer care team. So it costs a lot of money, but relative to what we have grown because of something like that, it's very small. But it is hard from a metric standpoint to prove that, oh, here's all this growth that we've had. It's because of this warranty. And I don't want anybody to get in there and try to do it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this one other thing real quick, because this is really key, is so my dad, when he sold those other brands at Eagle Optics, he would sell a product to somebody. And you know this, sometimes you sell binocular and that might take you 45 minutes to an hour.
Yep.
The person wants to understand, I have eyeglasses. Does that means I twist them back or do I have them down? You know, how do I do this? You know, all the things. And then they spend several $100s with you. Well, what would happen with one of these other brands is something would happen and it would break. And then they'd come back into my dad and be like, you know, I've been trying to call this company. They won't return my phone call. Or they gave me a bill that was more expensive than the binocular that I bought from you. Well, my dad was embarrassed. He's like, that's my customer. I sold him that. He had a little bit more clout, so he would go to the brand and try to make it right. And about maybe 50% of the time he could, but 50% of the time he would just make it right on his own expense. And so he said, if we ever have a brand, we're going to take care of it for him. Yeah. No questions asked, no expense for the customer, for the retailer. And then when we did that, that's where he got to the point and he said, hey, I'll tell you the story. So he's at a show, one of the bigger shows in the world. And I won't say who, but the CEO at the time of the largest brand in sport optics, kind of cornered him in a hallway. And he had known my dad because Eagle Optics was a pretty large independent retailer. Mm-hmm. And he said, hey, Dan, you got to get rid of that warranty. You're going to be out of business in a year. And so if you know my dad, he's pretty stoic. He doesn't, he just kind of smiled and walked away, even with more resolve that we were going to do it.
Yeah.
But again, he had this thing that it was like, if that put us out of business, we're supposed to be in business anyways. So that's why I don't really, it's not relative to what we make as a business from a gross or a profit standpoint. It's very small, but I don't want many people to even know that number of what because I don't want them to even start thinking that, oh, how do we save money by pulling things back?
So I want to go into that customer care part a little bit, but before that, with the warranty, what is the craziest story on a warranty that you're like, I can't believe they were doing that with that optic, or is there something out there that you're just like, wait a second here.
So I'll tell a couple stories, and then I'll tell you one thing that just to highlight our repair team that I think is kind of cool. And it's a story that kind of repeats itself a lot. But we shared this actually on social media. So this is a cool story, especially with Veterans Day just right around the corner. So we had a guy, Chris Bogner, and he sent his Viper binoculars back in with a note on it. And on that note, he said, if you can't repair this pair, I don't want you to replace them. I want you to send this one back. This one has a lot of meaning to me. He said an IED went off in Afghanistan and essentially blew up this pair of optics. And he didn't say blew up me, but essentially did. I mean, he was in the ICU for, months on end. And he said, so this pair that I use to spot IEDs and so on and so forth, it has a lot of sentimental value.
Yeah.
So our repair team got that, and we're all about this create a rare experience thing over here, right? So they're like, well, we can't just like send them a new one and send them this one back and be like, hey, here you go. Like that would have been great, but it's like, we got to elevate this. So they kind of, ran it up the chain or however you want to say that. And we were like, oh, we gotta make this a big thing. We got to make a cool experience. So we actually reached out to him, was like, hey, what if we flew you out here? We gave you a big tour, the full Wisconsin experience. We've got, trust me, you'll have that pair back. We'll have a new pair. And we're just going to make it a cool, like several days. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. So sure enough, we bring him in, give him the grand tour. We take him down to the old fashioned on the square, give him the full Wisconsin experience that you're getting now. And it was his idea to do a video on the VIP warranty and his experience. And sure enough, we did that. Because we just wanted to just show him how important he was and what that story meant for us and understanding what it meant for him. So we did a video. We did that several years ago, but I did kind of a story on social media and reshared it, and it just exploded because I think a lot of people could resonate with that and just understand that's a really cool story about Chris, and also that's a cool story about how a company showed up in a very personal way around their customers. So I think that's a story that really sticks with me. But there's stories about, again, somebody's firearm went off and shot through their spotting scope and they still used it. It was no longer purged with argon, and then they'd send a picture of the buck that they got. And then they'd be like, but now I'm sending it back because I need to get this repaired. So, there was stuff in fires, there's stuff in floods. But one of the things that happens more often than you think, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this with one of your customers, is every now and again, somebody's dog chews up their binoculars. And so we probably get 10 to 20 a year where a dog chews them up. You can still use them, but they're all chewed up, right? And most people are like, you're not going to warranty this. And they send a picture of their dog and, it's like Fido mangled this. And I totally get it if you don't warranty this. Well, we do, and so we'll repair them or replace them. Most of the time we repair them because those guys are magicians in our repair department, and it looks brand new. But after a while, we got so many that those guys wanted dog chew toys. And so they would send the new pair back or the repaired pair back, but with a dog chew toy and a note and be like, hey, next time give Fido this instead of that. So I just love the fact that we have people in all different nooks and crannies of this business that they're leaning into just kind of this very personalized, very unique experience for a customer that it's hard to find anywhere else.
So on top of that, 2 months ago, I had a guy in the store.
Okay.
Didn't want any other. He said, I just want a Vortex.
Yep.
And he was telling the story that his dog chewed up his binoculars.
Okay. Yeah.
Sent him back.
Right.
They send him a dog toy back with the binoculars. Say, hey, maybe like you were saying, he said within a week, the dog destroyed the dog toy. Yeah. And he called up just kind of joking. He's like, yeah. And they're like, they sent him 2 more. They said those have the warranty too. Yeah. He's like, I cannot believe this. He said, they chewed up my binocular and then they sent me the new binoculars and the toy. Yeah. He says, I'm never buying another optics. Right. He said, this is it. But it was kind of funny when you're telling me the story about it, I was like, I just had a guy a couple months ago,
is crazy.
That exact same thing.
Yeah, it's crazy that, I guess it's not when you have dogs, but yeah, we get a fair amount of those. And but again, for those guys to lean in. And then Jake, I think just was the one recently who upgraded that dog chew toy. And so a dog chew toy actually looks like a binocular.
Yes.
So they're always trying to find ways to do something that is really unique and memorable for a customer. Yeah.
And so along with that, as you grow, that's one thing when you've got a small family business
Yep.
and everybody's all in
Right.
on the customer and having that ethos that we're taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
You've got what, 450 employees now?
Right.
To carry that over when you're in your hiring process, that's got to be tough to make sure that you keep that same mindset with everybody that's coming in as you're growing.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is something that we talk about. So we've got a flywheel, which is our strategy, and there's different stops along the flywheel. And the idea is that you keep pushing on the flywheel, and again, eventually it creates this unstoppable momentum. And the first stop on the flywheel is what we call dialed in, and it's all about dialing in the team. Okay. And that's really talking about dialing in around a shared belief and around alignment. So we call it the alignment effect. And so before we even want to know, let's say you're a creative, you're in graphics, before we want to even see your portfolio, or before we want to even look at your resume, I'm not a big resume guy, but that's, before we want to understand your skill set, we need to understand, do you see the world the way that we see it from a belief standpoint? And so one of those beliefs is you got to love people. You got to like people. You got to like serving people. You don't necessarily need to be an extrovert or walk around with a Cheshire grin on your face. You don't, that's not what I'm talking about. But you have to love people and serving people. And so if that's not something that you're into, like if you just want to be a hired gun and you're going to do a really good job, but you're expecting to make a lot of money and you could care about anything in between, like I don't hate you, but don't apply.
This isn't the place.
This is not the place for you, right?
Yeah.
Like there's places for you where that's, and I fully believe that companies should just own who they are. If that's all you care about is just the bottom line, own it. Tell your employees, and they'll make the decision. But for us, making money or being profitable, that's on the list, but it's not the tops on the list or the full list. And so we are really looking for shared belief. And I think, and of course we're not perfect, but I think we've done a pretty good job of that, of ferreting out people that don't believe what we believe and keeping people that do. But you're right, like 435 people is harder than 35 people or 10 people. It is more difficult, but I think if you have the mentality of like we're hiring for alignment, we're hiring for shared belief, I think to the extent that we can keep that going, or a company can keep that going, is where they can keep that culture strong.
Because the one thing that's impressed me from the whole time dealing with Vortex, there's a lot of companies that claim they have great customer service,
right,
that they don't.
Yeah.
And so to actually deliver it and not only sustain it, but to increase the component of that customer service. It's not like you guys are staying static. It seems like each year there's something else that, oh yeah, we're doing this. Oh yeah, we're doing this.
Right.
And you just keep building on that momentum, not only within the company, but that customer service aspect. And being in retail, dealing with customers, I'm like, how do they come up with this stuff?
Yeah.
You just keep growing that. Right. And we were talking before we came on here, the one that really hit me was this fall when I got a picture in a Vortex frame, wood Vortex frame, of me on my stag hunt in New Zealand. Yeah. And I'd sent that to Seamus and Larry because they'd help me get a pair of binoculars. I had emailed them the photo after that. And, it was a year and a half ago. And then all of a sudden this out of random just shows up.
Yeah.
And it was just a few weeks before my dad passed. And just because he was the one that wanted me to go on that hunt. Yeah. He was one, and he's like, hey, do you want to take your mom? And so I took my mom on that hunt. Wow. And so just the emotions behind that, the way that hit. Yeah. I'm guessing it was Larry. I forgot to ask him yesterday. Yeah. But on Monday, I'm going to ask him. I was like, hey, was that you that was behind that? Yeah. Yeah. Just to let him know. Right. The impact that had on me. Right. Not only as a retail customer, because I carry a lot of Vortex products myself, but also selling them, to just see that personal touch of like, I wasn't buying anything or anything like that. It's like, here's a picture. It's got our name on the frame. Right. But I hope you remember that great experience. Yeah. That was. I appreciate you sharing that, because that is
So we both own businesses, and there's nothing wrong with the business from the metric standpoint and sales, profitability being good. It's good to have a healthy business like that. But at one point, all of us are going to die. The mortality rate is hovering around 100%.
100%.
Okay. And it might sound cliche, but our lives, we're going to want at that point more than just, man, this was the most profitable optics company in the world, right? That's cool if that's on the list, but I don't want that at the top of the list. I want a bunch of moments that I played a small part, like that you just said, and I will have had a full life. I will have had a great life if I could have played a small part in this big moment for this person. If I could have leaned into that moment and just made it a little bit extra special, that's what I'm going to take with me. That's how I'm going to know I've lived a good life. And the interesting thing is I think we call it connection creates momentum. So if I'm focused on connection, which is connection with another person, authentic human connection, the byproduct of that is you feel momentum. I mean, you could just feel it the way you were speaking, right? How it made you feel. I feel momentum hearing that story, right? Like I'm walking out of here and it's like a shot on my arm of just, that was awesome. And then it just so happens that it's good for the business, right? Is you have people that are like, why would I go with another brand? So I think to the extent that people can lean into authentic human connection, we just make the world a better place. And so that's where we try to hire people like that. So Larry, I think you're right. Larry probably did that. And because he just knew like, oh, this is a big deal for Doug. Yep. I think it's super cool. I know the backstory. You guys have known each other for years, right? And sometimes you just like, I have a feeling that this is just going to hit really well for him right now. And he could probably really use this right now. And he doesn't know that you're going to tell this story on a podcast, and that doesn't matter. I mean, it's wonderful you did, but that's not the reason he did it. The reason he did it is because he actually cared about you, and you felt that.
And that's what I get with so many interactions with people at Vortex.
Yeah.
Throughout whoever it is I'm talking to, that they're not just there for the customer support.
Yeah.
It's because I'll call and I'll have a question for a customer or something at the store. It's like, hey, what about this? And they're not trying to get on the next call.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're there. It's like, anything else you need?
Right.
Can we help with this? Is there any other questions? Do you want to talk? And they're invested beyond just answering that first question.
Yeah. And we don't track it's somewhere in the metric sheet, but we don't look at it. Like we don't track each person who's on the phones and like, how long are you on the phone? Oh, and Kenny, you're on the phone, 10 minutes longer on average than everybody else. Let's get that. Like, no, the phone call is as long as the phone call needs to be. Right. And so you just meet them where they're at. And so, if some guy is on the phone and he wants to go on and on about his hunt, that's what he needs then. And you just need to listen. But also you hire somebody who likes to listen. You hire somebody who's like, oh, you're talking about your stag hunt? I'd love to hear about your stag hunt. So you're actually hiring somebody that's authentic to them. Every once in a while, I remember we had this one guy, good guy, worked for us for a long time. He's retired now. But we had him on phones and, he'd be on there and somebody be talking for a little bit and he'd say, yes, and what's your question? Then he said, okay, and what's your question? So I was like, fortunately he was really great engineering, and so we got to put him in repairs. So he wasn't on the phone with customers, So he had a great impact on the business, but cutting somebody off and saying, what's your question? That's transactional. Mm-hmm. Right? That's not what we're here for. So sometimes you're on a marathon phone call. Well, guess what? The customer just needed to be on a marathon phone call, and they feel that like even sometimes when they write in, they'll be like, Kenny was listening to me drone on, and probably was like, I'm surprised he stayed awake, but it really meant a lot that he listened to me, and he got excited about the things that I was excited about.
And that, while you're speaking about that hit on something that, when I was mayor and we had the slide, one of the things, because there's a lot of people that were extremely, the way that they were talking and stuff, they're extremely angry. Mm. And one of the mental health experts that was helping us through that was mentioning, he's like, you don't know what stresses another person is under. Mm. And this is something I had realized in myself. I used to have really bad temper. I'd fly off the handle at
Yeah.
things, and people's like, this is really not helping anybody. And in tracing it in my own mind, I realized it wasn't always what happened in that moment, but it was a lot of other things
Yeah.
that built up to
Sure.
that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of times that people just need to be heard when they have an issue with something,
Yeah.
that they can call in screaming, this doesn't work. But just having somebody listen to them, because it's whatever other stressors, they've got a sick parent, they've got a sick kid, somebody somebody passed away recently in the family, kids struggling at school, somebody just lost a job, that connection, or the person that's on that wants to tell the hunting story for an hour, they're also reminiscing about a hunting story from when they were with their dad.
Exactly.
Or somebody else, and they don't have that person to share it with.
Yep.
And so filling that role goes beyond just the optics.
Totally.
But you guys are in that way. It's not about optics. It is not about the optics at all.
No.
You are just being there as another human being,
right,
for other human beings, and allowing them just whatever emotions they need to express.
Yeah.
And that's a rare gift that a company can give to their customers.
Yeah. And I think I'm so glad that you said that. You said it so well. Yeah. So it sounds squishy, but people want to be seen, heard, and valued. They want to feel like they're important. And the reality is they are. But
it's hard for them to feel important a lot of times, because you look at social media and who's getting all the hits and links, or the thumbs up and the heart emojis, whatever,
right,
that it can be really easy to feel less than you are in today's society.
Agreed. And I think a lot of times what I would like to see businesses change, but it's going to take some courage, is to realize when you push metrics to the center, the most important part, right?
Yep.
Now the focus shifts away from human connection. So now all of a sudden it's like, well, if I hire another person on the phones, and then that's 30% more than their salary for benefits, and I've got to get a seat for them, and I've got to get a computer and a phone and all that kind of stuff. So I need to make sure that people on the phones can really only go about 10 minutes. And after that, you better wind it up, right? Because then otherwise I got to hire a new person. I can't afford a new person. So it's understandable those things to go through your head. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever think of those things. But that type of thinking pushes metrics to the forefront, and metrics are very cold and transactional. And the irony is by making metrics the center, what happens is the human connection part gets snuffed out, and you get a very transactional experience. And what's the byproduct of a very transactional experience? It's not loyalty. It's not customer satisfaction. It's I may never shop with you again, or I'm certainly not loyal to shopping with you again. So the byproduct is actually those metrics get worse. The very thing you put in the center actually gets worse. Whereas if you shift and you can trust and have faith in it, you still got to keep an eye on your metrics. But when you have faith and say, I'm going to build a company that's based off of human connection. And I sell optics, and we make the best optics in our opinion, but actually it's not about optics. Our business is about people, our employees, our customers. You put that at the center. Now all of a sudden the byproduct is, the metrics get better. The metrics get better. So you see, it's a paradox. What's up is down, and what's down is up sometimes. And so yes, I'd love to see other businesses do that shift, but I understand it's going to take a lot of courage to do that. But I hope that we can be a catalyst for other businesses doing that.
Well, and interesting you brought that up, because do you feel there's any threat to Vortex in the optics world by other companies adopting some of your principles, or is that going to be such a huge shift with the ships that they're steering that you guys have kind of cornered that, and it's going to be really hard for somebody else to make way into?
So I hope they do. Yeah. I hope they do. And because you know why? It'll just force us to get better. And then who wins? Everybody wins. So I hope they do. Now, if you were to just twist my arm for an answer, I think most won't. I think it's they're very difficult decisions to make. I think if you haven't been going that way, if you didn't start that way, because you might go back a little bit before you go forward, right? Especially if you've been
absolutely.
doing all metrics forever, and then it's like, oh, we got to rejigger it. This is a whole mind shift, not just a mindset shift. It's everything shifting, and so sometimes you have to go a little bit down before you go forward, and you got to be committed to it long term. So, for instance, let's say you have a great warranty, but not just in writing. You've hired people internally to do the repairs. You've hired people on the customer care phones, and so on and so forth, right? You're not going to get a return on that right away. You see,
No.
that like, my dad wasn't watching, and I'm not watching, if A, we have this warranty, then B,
Yep.
and I'm going to need that to show up in 6 months. Or what's the quarter look like? What's the quarter look like?
Yep.
No, he was committed to that. That's just how we're going to be. So he was committed long term, and very few people are going to make that commitment long term. I hope they do, because I think the world is a better place. And so our vision is to be the catalyst that improves the world through service. So you better believe it. If you're a competitor, if you're not a competitor, if you're a restaurant, I don't care. I hope we can be inspirational for people to, whether they call it care and creator experience, I actually don't care. It's the spirit of it that I care about.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody does it. And then our mission is care, creator experience. And so that's how we do that, is we create these highly personalized, memorable experiences. And some of them aren't. Sometimes we get a phone call from somebody and he says, hey, what's the close focus on the Crossfire binocular? It's 5 feet. Okay, thanks. Click. No, wait, let's connect. You wouldn't do that. It'd be super creepy.
Yeah.
But when you have the moments, like you have somebody who's a dealer of ours, has been a dealer for a long time, you've got a good connection with, he sends you a picture about a stag hunt, about kind of what's going on with him and his family, and you say, hey, I'm going to lean into this. And maybe you don't think about it this directly, literally, but you think, like, I see you, Doug.
Yeah.
Like, I see you in this email. I see what you're going through. And maybe I didn't go through the exact same thing, but I've kind of been through stuff before. I just want you to know I see you. Like, I hear you, man.
Yeah.
And what's a way I can tangibly do that to show up? Be like, oh, he's got this cool picture. Let me print that out. Let me put it in a frame. Let's write him a letter and just send it to them. And now he just knows he's seen. And again, if that results in loyalty, if that results in him doing a post on social media, so be it. But if not, that's okay. I just showed up for Doug today. That was it. And that's all that mattered. So I hope more people do that. I don't want it to be a secret. I'm on social media and stuff, and I'm giving away the playbook. I hope our competitors do it. And I don't mean that in a cocky way. I don't. I mean that in a way that I think that we want the world to be a better place. And I think the world is a better place when people are showing up that way, whether it's in business or just in life.
And I contrast Vortex to kind of like the Jack Welch School of Management, where it's metrics. We got to get as tight as we can.
It's cutthroat.
And I think you look at a lot of the publicly traded companies out there, it's all short term. Where's our stock price at?
Right.
And a case example of that for me, I'm not a business expert or anything, but just looking at the outside, is you look at Boeing. That used to be the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
They merged with McDonnell Douglas. They changed the culture of the company. It went from an engineering company. Now it's more the accountants seem to be running the company. Now they started having problems with planes, and they're having a lot of difficulties by veering away from that thing that made them great.
Right.
And so that's, as you're moving forward to maintain that, because you're not going to be here forever. Like we were talking earlier, death's kind of 100% thing. And so going to that next step into leadership of Vortex,
right,
that third generation, if that's where it goes, how do you instill that same ethos for the decades to come?
I mean, it really is that alignment effect. It's a shared belief. So I want everybody, but I want a critical mass of people that care is just infused in them. It's just in their DNA, right? And because what happens is every now and again, if you make somebody who isn't a culture fit, who isn't aligned with what you're doing, well, guess what? To use a Jim Collins ism, is like the culture ejects them like a virus.
Yeah.
Right. The culture is like, oh no, that's not how we do things around here, right? Like metrics are important, but they don't run the show. They're not number one on the list. Like, they're on the list, but they're not number one. And you are well intentioned. So they're not necessarily bad people, but your focus is on this thing. Mm-hmm. And that thing that you're focused on just so happens to be the byproduct. What we're focused on is this thing. So I think to the extent that you can create a groundswell inside your business of people that all have that bought in thing, you protect yourself from somebody coming in and, again, probably well intentioned, but really hurting the culture. So for me, I have a lot of leaders around me, and they don't get to be a leader unless I feel like they have that. You know, they don't get to be a leader. And we've got people in line. If God forbid I get hit by a bus, that would step in. That this is not new. Care is not new. Understanding what makes this place tick is not new to them. They understand that, and so yeah. I'm highly focused on keeping that culture going. In the infinite game sense, forever. I think that's always. And here's another thing too that I would say for somebody who's just thinking about this. I think that is actually building your business off of principles versus tactics. So tactics are changing all the time. Tactics are very specific. In this situation, with these sorts of variables, you navigate it this way. And I'm not saying that the tactics are bad, but what I'm saying is superior is principles. So a good example of a principle is treat other people the way you want to be treated. The lack of specificity is a feature, not a flaw. I can use that golden rule. I can use it anywhere at any time. And because it's a principle. And I think there's a principle of when you have other people's back, they tend to have yours. And then we could go through all kinds of principles. So our business really isn't made like, we'll come up with really cool products and really cool technology, but that's not our business. Our business is principles. That's actually how you go from a Wild Birds Unlimited to being the largest sport optics brand in the world, because you actually built yourself off principles. If we built it off of selling the most bird seed, then we would have just stayed Wild Birds Unlimited. Now, that doesn't mean we don't love optics. We do. Yeah. We love hunting. We love shooting. We live with the Second Amendment. We love all of that. But it's really the most central thing about us is building off of principles. And so I think if we can do that and then hire people who believe that, they will keep that going. But yeah, if we take our eye off the ball, which can happen, and we shift, then, we could go the way of other companies that are just, all about the short term, all about the end of the quarter. Every decision is made about financial in the short term, and long term, the whole culture, the whole spirit of the place just gets snuffed out. But I am very focused on that not happening.
And that's, as you keep bringing up, and that's one of the things I want to talk about too.
Yeah.
Care.
Yeah. Yes.
Create a rare experience.
Yeah.
So I think people that are listening probably have a pretty good idea of that right now from what you've talked about, but more specifically, what brought that about? What are the core principles behind that create a rare experience?
Yeah. So the CARE was an acronym that I had heard, I think, in the mid 2000s. I still don't even know where I heard it from the first time. And, and I remember Seamus and I would use that a lot, like create a rare experience. And it was an axiom that we would just use, and then we would share it with other people in the business, and everybody just kind of knew instantly, like creating a rare experience is like that stag hunt photo that you sent, right? That's create a rare experience. Create a rare experience is when you send that dog chew toy to that customer, right? You're trying to lean into this very unique, memorable, personalized experience, very, very human experience. And so when we were going through and doing our vision mission stuff, it was cool because everybody was like in the mission. So the vision is like the better world you want to create, right? And then the mission for us is how you get there. And everybody's like, it's care. It's like we all say it. And so I think the beauty of it is it says it's very short, it's very easy to remember, but it means a lot. And I think the unique thing is it's very personalized, it's very human. It's very unique. It's memorable. It creates the first word. I believe every person is a creator, and I think so. It involves creativity, to come up with something that's rare and unique. And I think so. I'll give you an example. Hopefully, a very simplistic example for anybody that's listening. So let's take Christmas cards, okay? And I don't mean the personal ones. I mean the business ones. A lot of times businesses will send Christmas cards and they'll get Christmas cards, okay? And I apologize to anybody that might get offended about this if they're doing Christmas cards the way that I say you shouldn't do them. But with that caveat, I'll lean in. Okay. So if you send a Christmas card to somebody and you're thinking, well, we want to send out a Christmas card to 300 people this year. That's a lot of cards. Okay, so let's do this. Let's come up with a cover, and then let's come up with some copy that we want to put on there, and then let's print it on every card, and either send it out, or I'll just sign my name to it and send it out. Well, why would you do that? Well, I'll tell you why you do that, because that's efficient.
Yep.
Right? It's efficient to print it on the card, because after all, if I wrote on 300 cards, that's going to be work. That's going to take me time. And my answer to that is exactly. And when you don't put in the time and the work, somebody, so usually if you get the printed Christmas card, you're kind of like, okay, thanks, right?
Yep.
But what if instead you did 300, or maybe you just did 30, but you wrote something meaningful on every card in pen. And oh, by the way, when people jump in, they say, my handwriting stinks. People don't care about it. Your handwriting stinks. They care that you put enough time and energy into writing that note and sending it off to them. So what would be create a rare experience? Well, it wouldn't be the highly efficient way. And I would argue, what are you being efficient at? Sending a bunch of Christmas cards that nobody cares about? I'd rather be effective on sending something that's actually meaningful, like the stag photo in the frame with a handwritten note.
Yeah.
And so that is a care. It's highly personalized. In today's day and age, it's very unique. It wasn't maybe unique in 1950. It's very unique now. And it's and it's something that you essentially, in this case, you had to create. You had to write something out. So that's a very simplistic way. They can be big ways and they can be small ways. But the whole idea is that, or I'll give you an example. Here's another example. Somebody calls up and says, hey, I'm looking at this new Viper HD rifle scope, and I see that you added this new reticle, and it's great to see it on the website, but it's just against a white background. I'd love to see it against a natural background. And let's say Ryan Muckenern's on the phone. He's like, can I put you on hold for a minute? I'm gonna go make that happen right now. So he goes, grabs the scope from the showroom, goes outside, puts it up, takes his iPhone, snaps a photo, and then says, hey, can I get your email, your cell phone number? I've got a picture of it right now. And he texts the guy right then and there. But what would most people do in that situation? Most people would be like, maybe once it gets out there, maybe there's going to be some people on social media that'll do that. But right now, it's just that picture's on the website.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Now, is that person like super upset? Probably not, right? Probably not upset. But it's not a care experience.
He's super excited when he gets the picture.
Right. But on the flip side
is huge.
It's totally huge, right? Because it's rare. Mm-hmm. It's unique. It's memorable. And as the customer, whether you think of it consciously or unconsciously, you're like, I matter. They think I'm important enough. That guy thinks I'm important enough to get up from one of 100 phone calls he might take today and go out there. And the reality is, here's the cool thing, though, too, if you're thinking about doing this in your business. In that example I just gave, that actually didn't take a lot of work.
No.
In today's day and age, it is a lot of work, but it really didn't take you a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I got up, I walked out, I know exactly where that Viper rifle scope is. I grabbed it, I walked outside, I took a photo, I came back, I asked for your cell phone or your email, and I sent it to you. Maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So it really didn't take much, but this guy, and I've seen the letters. My dad called them love letters, so we still call them love letters. To your point earlier, everybody says they have good customer service. Nobody says, hey, here's the thing. We make the best products. Customer service, it's just okay.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody said, but the litmus test is, what do your customers say? And Rhonda, who leads our customer care, she compiles all of the notes from customers every week. There's usually between 30 and 50. And she emails those to me and to Seamus and a few other people Monday morning. And I look through every single one. So I know what people, and the reality is, it doesn't take much. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take a lot of work for somebody to feel seen, heard, valued, and for them to say, I'm a customer for life. Somebody emails in, they're like, I might be one of your best customers. And they'll send a photo. I just got a photo the other day. This guy, he saves all his product boxes. So he's got the corner of his little man cave. He's got like 56. I think he counted 56 Vortex product. And he's like, this is before I started saving the boxes. I have, 4 of these and 3 of these, right? So this guy's over 60 some products of Vortex. Well, let's just do the math on that. This guy's tens of thousands of dollars into Vortex, right? And then he sends me a photo of him and his family, his wife and his 4 boys, and they're all wearing Vortex stuff.
Yeah. And
it's like a Vortex themed Christmas card. So I'm like, I'm writing him this note back, but I'm like, well, so I'm like, hey, I need the shirt sizes of the boys and your wife, he said that. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to send you stuff that you don't already own because it looks like you own everything. But, I sent him a care package. I got hats, I got some ball caps, I got some winter hats, I got some hoodies and t-shirts. And again, I got some sticker packs for some of the younger boys. And I'm sending that, but like, I'm just stoked. Like, this customer, of all the things he could have spent money on, he spent it on Vortex.
Yeah.
He saved the boxes. He took a photo. He took a Christmas card photo of his family. So like this, we call it a bid for connection. He may not even know he's doing a bid for connection. Most people don't, but he's like trying to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Really. That's what's happening underneath the surface. And I'm like, let's go. Like, let's do this. Like, I'm pumped that you think this highly of Vortex, that you took the time to send all that in, and I'm going to show up tangibly. That's care. That's what care is all about. So it's kind of, it doesn't have, our flywheel is a strategy. So that would really be like, dial in the team, focuses on the customer. We've got, I'm drawing a blank now, but, we make customers for life. We've got, find other ways to serve the customer. And then we've got, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. So we'll grab it. So we have a strategy, but really before you get to the strategy of care, with that flywheel concept, you really have to understand it at more of like a visceral, almost a spiritual perspective. And I think once you do that, it can be applicable like the golden rule. Now I can apply care everywhere, as opposed to like I have a checklist of care. Instead, you can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to this trade show. I'm going to be meeting with all these dealers at Worldwide that have been selling Vortex forever. Like, how can I show up in that booth with those meetings I've scheduled in a way that really shows that I care about them? So that's really more care as opposed to kind of the GPS direction, tactical way of doing it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that.
No, it fully explains it.
Yeah.
And as you're going through that, customer stories, my own story, you can feel that through pretty much every interaction with people at Vortex, even on the dealer level. When we do go to the shows, they've always got, Doug, we've got this program we're working on. We got this program we're working on. It's very much, how can we help you?
Yeah. Meet you where you're at.
And we're not a huge account for you guys. Yeah. As our store.
Wait a minute. You're not?
I know. I told them to lie to you so you do this. But when I'm dealing with Vortex, I feel like I'm a huge account.
And say, I hope you feel like it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of companies that you deal with that you feel where your sales level is.
Like how much are they selling? Yeah. Okay. Like, all right, you got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You're
here.
Yeah.
It's never felt that way from the and I'm always, whether it was when I first started dealing with Seamus or now with Jake and that, and it's like, okay, you're doing what for me?
Right.
Why are you doing this? And I should expect it now. Yeah. But it's still always a surprise to me. I'm like, I don't deserve this. Well, and it's a cool feeling to have as a small independent retailer that a lot of times gets overlooked. Yeah. To have a company out there that's like, we got your back. How can we help you be successful?
It's funny that you say that. So obviously we have that example of being a small independent retailer, right?
Yeah.
So that's partly why we kind of end up, showing up that way with you. But I think the other thing too, and this is just something, for people who sell to retailers or, is collectively small independent retailers collectively are big. Mm-hmm. They are massive. And so the thing is that was one of the things that my dad had said. He said, Joe, we're not going to go through distribution. We're only going to go dealer direct. And he goes, it's going to take longer that way. But he said, we want to have have a relationship with, and we didn't know at the time how many it was going to be, it could be, 12, 1,400 retailers across the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to treat them, that care way. And in every region, in every state of the country, well, boy, if you get that, that's what we call Vortex Nation. Yeah. Because you have now, and quite honestly, that's a lot of times why the big retailers want to sell your stuff, is because these small independents have really been the ones that really, magnified your brand. And so you got to honor that. You got to honor that not only for what they did, but you also got to honor it for what they're still doing. And so for us, yeah, we may not be able to fly up to Haines, Alaska 4 times a year, okay? But you're gonna get that, again, that VIP experience I was talking about. Yeah. We want you to feel that. So again, the litmus test is what our customers say. So to hear that from you means a lot.
And it as you were talking about that, there's been brands that we've carried right at the start. That came out, it was like, oh, this is a cool product. Yeah. And they get to a certain size, and it's like, well, yeah, we're not dealing with you anymore.
Yeah, we're done.
To the big box stores. And it's like,
yeah,
wait a second.
Yeah.
We were here kind of from the beginning, right, helping you with this.
Yeah.
And like you were alluding to earlier, sometimes this metrics on how these different, they're not making us enough money. They're not making us money. Right. And some of those, I still have, some of them it's, 5, 6, 7 years that I haven't been able to carry their products.
Right.
And I still have customers. Do you have this product? Yes. I was like, and I'll tell them the story, and they're like, well, I'm not buying them anymore.
Right. Right.
Whether they do or not. I mean, if they see it somewhere else, they'll probably still buy it. But it's,
yeah.
I think a lot of times those accountants get into the mix, and it changes things.
Well, and I think they look at it in a silo. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look at, big box dealer here, and just that, if you've got that narrow view, then you can easily say, well, yeah, why would we do this with this? But if you pan back the lens and you look at 2 things. So I'll say this from somebody who's probably a little bit more metric based. If you pan back the lens and you look at the whole country, and I think there's a metrics-based case to actually lean into the small independent retailers. Now, I'm going to put that metrics to the side, because that's not really how I think. And I think more in the sense of like, hey, I've got a job, or I've not got a job. I'm building my life off of principles. And one of those principles is I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I want to take care of people and have their back when they've had mine. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, if a retailer's not paying their bills and they're yelling at your employees, that's different. We're not talking about that. But if that retailer's still selling your product and they were there first, and they're doing a good job, and we have a good relationship, and they do $5,000 worth of business in a year, and instead of $5 million, I have no issue continuing on with that retailer. And when they call, meet them where they're at. Let's help them out. Let's help them win. And, we've been there when we had a Wild Birds Unlimited store, and you really appreciate people when they showed up, and maybe metric based wise, they didn't have to. And so we're going to pay that forward, similar to the way that your dad did.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm totally fine with however that plays out.
Yeah. I wish more companies were that way.
Yeah. And we're hoping that this, so CARE's our mission.
Yeah.
And so with our vision being the catalyst that improves the world through service, we think one service that we can provide is we can be a catalyst for CARE, not just being our mission, but turning it into a movement. So we started in 2002, Vortex was 0, right? And right around 2015, 2017, we became the largest sport optics brand in the world. And we've still done that. And I don't say that to brag, but I do say that for just kind of like proof that how we do it, which is what I'm way more interested in, how we do it works. And I think we can hopefully be a catalyst for other companies, whether they want to be the biggest in the world or whether they want to be the biggest in their little town. We can be a catalyst for that. And also we can learn along the way. So people who kind of have that similar ethos, share us your stories. We want to learn from you. How are you doing? You want to call it CARE? Great. And if you don't, that's fine too. I'm more about the spirit of it. So we're hoping to be a catalyst. We're hoping to learn. And again, we're hoping to fulfill the vision of, being the catalyst that improves the world through service. So that's really where a lot of people outside the walls now are hearing about CARE, is we really feel like the world needs it now more than ever. It's racing towards AI. It's racing towards automation. It's racing towards metrics and transactional experiences. And all of those things I just mentioned, they're not bad. They're just not the ultimate thing. They're things that should come out after you're focused on the people. And I would also argue they're going to help you understand, where do you put automation in? What sort of process do you put in? Because you can't do it and remove the human connection element. But when you put those things in the center, the human connection element just gets snuffed out. So I think now's the time. I think we can be one of the catalysts. You guys can be a catalyst in your area, and hopefully other companies will see this and they will implement it. It'll be better for them on their bottom line. It'll be better for them for their life. And I think also it's going to be much more impactful for their employees. And it's going to have their employees all of a sudden show up to work. And now they're going to be fully engaged employees and excited to contribute, because they know it's more than just profit. It's more than just dollars. It's more than just metrics.
Yeah. No, it's a great argument. And it does, dealing with Vortex inspires me to do a better job at our store. We're nowhere near your level.
Well,
hopefully someday I can be.
Yeah.
That's a goal.
Yeah.
Is to take these learning experiences when I am dealing with Vortex, and it is a thought process. How can I bring that back into our business and make sure we're treating our customers the same way we've been treating through Vortex?
I love it. And when you have some good ideas, you send them down to Jake and Seamus, and we'll see if we can't implement them too. So we want to learn from each other.
Great. I love that.
Love it.
Speaking of, so as we've been talking, there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about at the beginning and kind of slipped my mind. So if we can go back.
Absolutely.
You're working at Vortex, family business.
Yeah.
Dad.
Yep.
What, 3 brothers that are here?
Yep. 3 brothers. Yeah.
I'm working with my mom, my older sister, my oldest nephew at the store. There's family dynamics that go into that as well as the business aspect of that.
Yeah.
How do are there limits that you guys put on what you can discuss at the Thanksgiving table, or there's certain things that are off topic?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, as you know, with family businesses, there's no drama. It's just easy.
Oh yeah. It's easy going. There's no potential for reality TV at all.
Right. Yeah.
None of that.
So I think we do a good job. I will say at Thanksgiving and Christmas, it is hard not to talk about work a lot. I think we've had certain Thanksgivings and Christmases we've done a better job. A lot of times the wives are in one area and the guys are in the other, but we've been trying to do more of a concerted effort. I think as far as just like in the business, one of the things that really helped us. So first of all the brothers are incredibly smart, talented, hardworking. Nobody's got any terrible vices or, things like that, that could really derail the business. And also we had very complementary skills. Some of them overlapped for sure, but also complementary skills. And we had abilities to kind of forge different areas of the business that helped the overall business. And I would also say that my family is very good at understanding that, if we do something that's really going to cause a rift within the family, it's going to spill out into the business, and that's going to be bad for everyone. So not that I think we would have ever gotten there had that not been in place, because we generally worked through disagreements pretty easily. Every now and again you can trigger a family member just because you're a family member. So that happened, but it never got, I did a lot of family business studies. I remember, and I went down to Kellogg School of Business for a week and a half, and with one of my brothers, and it was all family businesses, and got to learn a lot. And so I'd talk to some family businesses, and I'd be like, "Oh, what's it like dealing with your brother?" And they'd be like, "Well, I don't deal with them. We hired Bob to be the go-between." And I'm like, "What? You can't even talk to each other?" So, anyways, going down there was very eye-opening in the sense that it was like, gosh, whenever I felt there's been any tension, which wasn't much, it was dramatically lower than I think a lot of people experience. So I would say this in a family business, in everything, I would say this, everything has a trade-off. Everything has a trade-off. So one of the things, if you're in a family business, in some cases, family members can trigger just because of their sheer existence, and vice versa. Thanksgiving dinners or Christmas, sometimes they can feel like a business meeting and not just having a good time. And on the flip side, we had, when my dad was in and all 4 of us brothers were in, you had guys that were in it to win it. You know, they were smart, they were talented. You got way more than what you paid for in that from an employee standpoint, right? Like they had and so from that you had a lot of great, wonderful things. And so there's your trade-offs, And I think, everything, even when you recommend an optic to somebody, right? They say, you're thinking, well, how are you going to be using it? Well, I want something really small and compact. Okay, well, you're going to sacrifice a little light gathering. Yep. You're going to sacrifice, maybe just how steady it is because it's so small. Or on the flip side, you've got more magnification, you got a bigger objective lens, but it's not as portable and it weighs more. So I think everything in life has its trade-offs. And I think in family, the trade-offs for us we had way more in the plus column. Way more in the plus column. But I also think to say that there was never any tension at different times, or we didn't lock horns occasionally, would be disingenuous. I do remember one time though, and I'm really proud about this one. I remember there was a time where I was adamantly disagreeing with my dad on a decision that we should make, and in hindsight, really appreciate him for these moments. He would really let me argue. I would do it respectfully, in private, one-on-one. Maybe if my brothers were there would be an audience. But, and so I was very respectful in the way that I argued, but I was very passionate, and he allowed me to be that way. But then in this particular instance, this was before we had dropped all these brands and moved to just Vortex. Yeah. And he was deciding about doing a license, and I was adamant against it. We ended up doing it for a little bit, and then we decided not to do it. That's not important. But I remember being in their kitchen right by the island, and I almost jumped on the island being like, we can't do this. This is like, we don't need to do this. It's going to be a waste of time and money and everything. And finally, I can't remember who said it. I think it was me. I think I was like, he was just kind of listening. I'm like, hey, have you made a decision? And he was like, yeah, I've made a decision. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go home and work out or scream in my room or punch a pillow. But tomorrow I'm coming in and I'm bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I'm selling that licensed brand. Yeah. Like it was my idea. And so I was proud of that because, one, I was proud of him because, he started the business. At the time, there was no ownership other than him and my mom. He didn't have to listen to this 23-year-old kid at the time argue. He could have just been like, hey, shut up and get back to work, right? He didn't do that. He gave me a voice at an age probably far earlier than I should have had. But then also that I was willing to, die to my idea. And I did. That next morning, I showed up, and you didn't hear me complain about that brand until we killed it. It was like, no, I'm full steam. So I was proud of that. So that's kind of a good, maybe example of how family businesses can operate sometimes. And then you got it, but you have to work through that. It's not, you just not just hitting the easy button.
No. Yeah. It took my sister and I a while to recognize my strengths, her strengths. And it's like, okay, you do that, I'll do this. Yeah. And we're going to coexist much better.
You can't do the same thing.
Can't do the same thing.
You really can't do that with anybody. No. But with family.
It's even, you got to do it separate. And, and one of the cool things for us is with retail, when my sister had her 4 kids, she would bring them to work. So they were all raised in the store from infants, all the way through. And had a room in the back, a TV so they could, nap time, whatever. Yep. And so they all grew up in the store. And then a year and a half ago, my oldest nephew had his first daughter. So my sister's got a granddaughter. And Tyler had come to us and he says, listen, would it be possible for bring my child, because before we knew if it was a boy or girl, bring my baby to the store and raise them at the store the same way. And both of us are kind of like, you enjoyed that? And he's like, yeah, those are some really cool.
Why?
He's like, those are some really cool memories, and it would be great if I could bring my kid to work. And so we have Stella every day at the store.
That's really.
And now his youngest brother in April had a boy, and so he comes in the afternoons. Right. And so it's kind of the joke around the store. It's like we need to up our staff because of the number of daycare providers we have for the kids. But it's a great opportunity for them because all of our staff loves them.
Yeah.
At least they show that they love them. They
Right.
might be like, why do they keep bringing these kids
Right.
to go to work? But and customers love seeing them at the front counter.
Right.
When you're at in the morning, you got Stella up there, and
Right.
she's waving to customers as they come in and they leave.
They're probably buying more if that's going on. I'm going to buy something extra if they got a little.
It could be helping sales.
Little kiddo out there waving and saying goodbye.
But it was reassuring for us that we had provided a good atmosphere for them in the store when they were younger. That both of them wanted their kids.
Volumes.
Plus, they don't pay for daycare, so that might have something to do with it as well.
Well, that's part of it. But I think it's cool because as we talked about, I grew up in the store and you grew up in the store, and I think if they decide to, of course.
Yeah.
If they decide to then be in the business, what an advantage from so many levels. I mean, there already had this immersive experience, which would really help them in whatever they decide to do. But then if they ever do come back in the business, that'd be pretty cool if you were an employee, I would think, to be like, well, this person was literally brought up here. You're not just pulling somebody off the street, that's now, I'm working alongside. This person was, really grew up here. So again, assuming they decide to do that, but
the choice will be theirs.
The choice will be theirs. Yeah.
But kind of on a related tangent.
Yeah.
You guys built a preschool.
Yes.
For your employees, it's just right down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to do the daycare. They've got that opportunity right close by.
Yeah.
That for me, that's the care experience for your employees as well.
Yeah, that's one where there was a big investment on that care one. And so we sit in Barneveld, which is between Mount Horeb and Dodgeville. Okay. So it's a little bit in no man's land as far as having a lot of things like preschools. Okay. Mount Horeb and Dodgeville are a little bit bigger. So there's options there. Or if you get further into Madison, there's a lot of options there. So, and then if you're looking at this is a good way of looking maybe at metrics, even though it wasn't a metrics-based decision. If we were looking at our employees from a hiring perspective, they kept skewing younger in that 25 to 35-year-old range, which is a lot of times when people are getting married and having kids.
Mm-hmm.
So our population was having more kids. So initially when we moved out here, my dad's idea was to build the building, lease it to a preschool, which is what we started with. And then we were going to graft that business into the business because I think they were having hard times from a financial perspective. The kids are a lot of the kids that were there were Vortex kids.
Yeah.
And they were getting good daycare, preschool. But there were some things that kind of, I think, left some things to be desired from the parent perspective or maybe the employee perspective over there. So we decided to ultimately not to graft them in. I gave them the heads up, at the end of that lease, 6, 7, 8 months away, that we were going to be the preschool.
Okay.
So I went to Lindsay, head of HR, and I mean, I did it better than this, I'd like to think, but the gist of it was like, hey, I need you to figure out how we can be a preschool. And so to her credit, and also our facilities team, also there was a woman that was working at the preschool who applied for a job, and she's been, Katie, she's been instrumental over there. They collectively got us to the finish line, and there's a ton of government regulations around becoming a preschool. But and then we were able to pick right back up after the lease was over with this Little Buffalo's preschool, is what we call it. And so, and then it was both community kids and Vortex kids. But as our population grew, we would grandfather community kids in, but then we would only fill up with Vortex kids. Yeah. And then we've done 2 small additions because we've had so many Vortex kids. And then people pay for it, but it's about 25 to 50% of what they pay on the going market. So they have something right on campus where their kids are. They don't have to drive past to Dodgeville or, you know what I mean? Like the drop off. So the kids are right there. They get to drop them off. They get a dramatically reduced amount that they pay. And we don't make money off of it. That's not what we have them pay. We like to have them have a little bit of skin in the game. But that is a benefit that we offer. And if people take advantage of that benefit, it is their favorite benefit. It's their favorite care. And I would argue from a secondary perspective or indirect perspective that everybody benefits. Because, I mean, there's nothing more that we worry about as parents than our kids.
Yep.
So if we can feel confident that our kids are in a good spot, that they're taken care of, that we're close, they're very close by, then I can show up better as an employee. I can show up better when I interact with customers, all because I have I feel confident that my kids are in a good spot. So yeah, so it's been a little bit of a journey. The number of kids has kind of slowed down, but it's still pretty robust. I want to say we're like 115 in the fall and spring, and then summer we have some summer school, so the age goes up a little bit, and I think we might get up to like 175 kids. There's a lot of kids.
I never would have imagined the numbers are that big.
Yeah, no, it's a
Wow.
big deal. It's a big
Yeah.
undertaking. Yeah, it's not easy to do, but it definitely is something that I mean, I've had parents that have come up to me and said, "Hey, we didn't think we were gonna be able to have a second kid because of the expense of it,
Yeah.
or maybe even a first kid, but because of this benefit, we had our child, or we had another child." So, I mean, to hear that,
It's got to be huge.
I mean, it's
rewarding for you.
huge. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it makes you kind of get goosebumps, hearing stuff like that. Cause that's the impact of that is generational, right?
Yeah.
It's like we might not have had a kid or hadn't had a second kid had it not been for that preschool. So it's been really rewarding, not only for the people that have their kids there, but for rewarding for me and I think our whole company. But as I like to remind people, we have to be really good to have a benefit like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And of course we didn't have that benefit until I want to say it's 2021, I believe, right around there is when we had that. So we weren't able to afford. We wouldn't have been able to afford that in 2004. So there's important things if you're a business looking at this. You can't just greenlight a preschool. It can cost a lot of money.
Yes.
But you can kind of stair step your way, and you don't know where it's going to end up. But it might become something like a preschool. But we have to be really good. Because that's a benefit. It does not make money. And so I also remind people of that. Like when we try to do care experiences for our employees, because we do. In fact, for me as the CEO, my customers are
your employees.
The employees. Yeah. And now some people play double duty like a Seamus because he's got people under him. But, you can be a customer for him or you're a customer for Jake. But my customers are the employees. So I want to lean into care experiences for them. But all of this stuff requires us to be good and to show up for customers, for dealers, for each other in a way where we create an abundance of, and you can call it what you want. I'm going to say an abundance of blessings. And in that abundance, now we can take that and we can serve other people. See what I mean?
Yep.
But we have to create that abundance. And you create that by showing up and doing a really good job and grinding it out each and every day.
Yep. The more you grind, the better the results get.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So one last question.
Yeah.
You're an avid hunter. You like being outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a bucket list dream, like tag, species, new Vortex product that would be the ultimate hunt?
So this would be good.
That's on your list. What's on your list for the ultimate hunt that you haven't done yet?
So this is so this will be good because I have a gift for you, and so I think it would be cool to do a buffalo.
Yeah,
the American buffalo, bison. I think that would be pretty cool. I think that animal's just a really cool animal, and I'll share a little bit about that here in a second. I think that would be a really cool experience. But I'll just, very candidly, I actually get more excited about other people's hunts.
Yeah.
So even like that is kind of a dream for me, but there's an employee of ours he's been with us a long time. I won't say his name publicly, but his dream is that bison hunt. So I have a contact but as soon as when I found that out, I was like, I just, my thing, the way I'm wired for good or bad, and I don't mean this in a way like an altruistic way or anything. I just think it's kind of cooler if I can help a lot of people get their bucket list hunt. But for me, if you twisted my arm, I'd say that one. I don't think it's the hardest hunt necessarily, but I just think that's a cool animal. One of our core values is be the buffalo. And that's that story. I don't know if you've heard it, but the idea is that these, the Colorado is kind of split in half by the Rockies, and these storms build up on the west side, and they spill over onto the plains. And in the plains of Colorado is pretty unique. You've got cows and you got buffalo. You're probably supposed to call them bison. I'm going to call them buffalo. So those storms get on the plains, and the cows see the storm, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that. And then so they start walking away from the storm. If you think about it, they're staying in the storm longer because they're walking with it.
Walking with it. Yep.
And so the buffalo are unique in that they react very differently. They see a storm coming, they turn and face the storm, and they charge. Yeah. They charge through the storm. So if you think about it, both are there's a discomfort there. They're both going through the storm, but one is going through the storm much quicker and getting to the other blue skies a lot quicker, and that's the buffalo. So for us, we had kind of tweaked this core value of innovators, which is a great word and thing, but for whatever reason, everybody kept taking it away as just being innovative with product, which we are. But it was kind of really what was more the core value was the spirit of entrepreneurship, of innovation, of going after new markets, or in putting new technologies in that maybe people thought you've got no business doing that. I mean, people thought we had no business going from being a retailer to being a brand. You know, that's kind of a storm, right? And then you got somebody who's the largest brand in the industry says, you got to get rid of that warranty. You'll be out of business in a year. That's a little bit of a storm. And so we kind of just felt like when I heard that story first, I shared it around. It kind of took on a life of its own. And they were like, hey, the spirit of what we're trying to do with this innovator's core value is really just be the buffalo. So anyway, I've got a gift for you over there. There's only a few of these. That binocular is I actually have two gifts for you, but there's
Be the buffalo.
Be the buffalo binoculars. So this is sold out on the market. Well, so I've got to be the buffalo, and then above there, you look right about eye level. You see that eagle?
Yep.
That is yours.
Oh wow!
Right there. I know I gave you a stuffed eagle. But I've had that in my office. There's a story that I'll share sometime with you about that. Not right now, but so it's meaningful, and obviously with your father, I know that's really meaningful. So those are both for you. But yeah, so the dream, the buffalo, the American buffalo is one of my favorite animals. So that would be the one. What's yours? Maybe you did it already. Maybe it was the stag.
I'm kind of where you're at.
Okay.
It's for me, when I was younger, it was always about, I need to get an animal. I need to get an animal. And now it's about the experience.
Yeah.
It's who I'm with.
Yep.
Beginning of September, I drew a sheep tag this year. First time drawing one in this area. I'd been sheep hunting twice before, and my oldest nephew came with me.
Yeah.
We didn't see anything anywhere close to legal.
Yeah.
We had to come out early because of weather.
Yep.
But it was some of the best time that I had, just hiking with him, sharing that experience, even the build up to it. What are you getting for a pack? What are we getting? Do we have this? Do you have this? What are we doing for food? Just that camaraderie of working with a family member. And even when I'm doing it with friends, he'd never been sheep hunting before. He'd never done a flown in trip. So the Super Cub flight in, just that, so many aspects of that experience.
Yep.
Didn't get anything, but that was one of my favorite hunts I've ever been on.
That's what it's all about.
Just because of that aspect of it. And so being able to bring other people with, like when I went on my stag hunt, my mom was with. They had her doing her stuff during the day and I was going out hunting, but coming back to the lodge and not having other people there, but having your mom there and sharing in that moment, that's what made that hunt. I got a great stag, but having my mom there made it 10 times better than it was before. Having Tyler with me on that sheep hunt was way better than with anybody else.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of things that I'd like to go see, but
it'll be who you're with.
It'll be who I'm with.
As much as
it's what's going to make the hunt, rather than, because I've gone on hunts by myself and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
They've been good hunts.
Right.
But it's for me, it's bringing somebody with.
Yeah.
And sharing that, the people you share the experience with is more important to me than actually getting an animal.
It's that connection creates momentum, right?
Connection creates momentum.
That's a good one to end on.
So, well, I appreciate your time here, Joe.
Thank you. This has been great.
For anybody that's watching this, I haven't released any of my podcast episodes yet. And so Joe's walking into this. He has no idea what we were going to be doing. I gave him a kind of a brief thing. We just met for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
Was our first time meeting. And for you to have allowing me to do this without any background or anything, and that trust in me means a lot to me. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with you. It means a lot, and look forward to working with you and Vortex in the future.
Well, it means a lot to me. And I felt like we were old friends the instant we left. And as soon as I gave you that, I mean, I thought we were blood brothers. So, but I think also it spoke very highly of you, even though we hadn't met, that you had clearly met a lot with Jake and Seamus, and the way they spoke about you and your business gave me a ton of confidence that this was something that we definitely had to show up and do. So yeah, we are looking forward to many years together going forward, sharing some of our stories, experiences that hopefully continue to inspire you, and vice versa, you sharing with us and inspiring us. So thank you again.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for watching this episode of Doug Has Questions. Just a reminder, if you've enjoyed the conversation today, please like, subscribe. We're available on YouTube if you want to watch us. If you just want to listen, it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you have new episodes being launched every Thursday. So thanks again for watching or listening and following us. We appreciate your support.